what's going on with that? You know, is this guy that good? Or are they just like that bad?
You know, actually it illustrates 2 points, I think, which is, first of all, there are areas of our country, and particularly of our state, that are still very rural and very vast and very thick and not hospitable, not as easily penetrated by technology as the government would always like us to believe, or as we would sometimes believe. And if a person is dedicated, they can certainly lay low in those areas. Now, the weather's not bad yet, so he's not freezing to death at night.
Right.
If he prepared for this, he may have put some caches of food and other things out there. He may know how to live off the land. I know if you really know what you're doing, and I speak from some experience, at one time I could probably identify 30 edible plants in a northeastern forest. Okay. I'm a little rusty. I haven't really, played with that stuff in 25 or 30 years like I did back in the day. But, I could walk through the woods and go, okay, you can eat that, you can't eat that, you can eat this, this is what this is good for. If you know what you're doing, a little bit of studying, you can survive quite a bit out there. Now, the next thing is with all these people, of course, they're just assuming they have him in a certain area. They're assuming that they've limited him down. And the other problem they have is they're afraid, because if he's doing it right, and I say right, he's waiting for them. In other words, he wants to kill another police officer, let's say. Well, while you're out walking around the woods looking for him, if he's holed up in a tree or under a rock or,
he's going to take you out, like you won't even see him.
Right. And so he could snipe.
You won't even hear the shot.
Right. You will not hear the shot. That is correct. And so that's the problem, is they can't just, run through the woods and look for him. What they're waiting for.
You know what I think they need to do?
Yeah.
Let's open up deer hunting season like a couple months early. And just put them PA deer hunters out there in the woods, and that guy will come out for fear of his life.
Right. Well, it's going to get to the point pretty soon where when the weather gets colder, and then something falls on the ground called snow. And the problem with snow is once snow falls, it's very easy to track. And that's really going to hurt him. The other thing is the temperature contrast will get greater. Right now, under normal tree canopy, if he keeps he keeps some mud and clothing. I'm told, because I talked to somebody about this, that over in Afghanistan, one of the things that the guys do is get under blankets, and that way it's very hard for the infrared imaging to see them. But when the temperature differentials are great enough, if it's a 75-degree day out or night, it's hard to see somebody under a blanket. If it's 0 degrees out, even a blanket's not enough to prevent some infrared from leaking out and giving enough image to find a person.
That's kind of one of the big questions I had. They go out there at night with them infrared cameras, man. They can find hot spots. They can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you can defeat it.
I don't quite get how it's been going. We're into week 3 now,
Right.
And this just isn't. So there's something about this whole thing that is not really normal with like the rest of the manhunts that you hear about.
Yeah, I think
that's why the question was: is this guy that good, or are these guys looking for him just that bad?
That bad, right?
You know what I mean?
Well, they are that bad, and he is that good, probably. And what I mean by that is that's not their training. I mean, let's just be honest. What is the job of a police officer? It isn't certainly not to hunt up,
It's to bust as many people as he can and generate as much revenue.
Right. Okay. Right. It's the right speeding tickets. Right. It's to look for. It's the things.
Or to bust in the no raid, or the no knock, warrants.
Right, or shooting the
guy's house in the middle of the night,
or shooting the African American guy down in North Carolina who reached after the cop tells him. I don't know if you saw the video I posted on Facebook, but it's been all over the news.
Yep.
He drives through a parking lot without a seatbelt on, so the police pull him over because he drove through a parking lot without a seatbelt on, and that's just
gets frickin' shot.
Right, and then as he gets out of the car, they say to him, "Hey, I need your license," and then he reaches into the car to get the license, and boom, boom, boom. Of course, the second 2 or 3 shots, the guy's going to...
And you notice how the cop shot, 3 or 4 times, and he couldn't hit nothing too serious because he asked the guy, "Hey, are you hit?" "Yeah, I'm hit." I'm hit. "Why'd you shoot me?" It's like it's almost comical. It's not comical. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, but where are these cops getting off, man? It seems like they all got, itchy trigger fingers these days.
Hey,
they just want to pull the trigger.
This is proof that a seatbelt law causes injuries.
Yeah, well, trigger-fingered cops cause injuries too.
Yeah, it really was kind of an unfortunate confluence of circumstance, and at the same.
And why aren't these cops getting busted, man? I mean, come on, we got laws we have to live by. You and me, Carl. We got to live by them every day. Well, living by them laws.
Well, I will say this: sometimes that police officer is getting arrested and charged. With assault or aggravated assault type charge version of that state. No attempted murder or anything like that.
Both know he ain't going to get what we would get.
Well, that's true. That's probably true.
Right. He ain't going to. He's got some special privilege because he's a freaking law enforcement officer.
Let me just say this: I'm willing to bet $1 million if there had not been a videotape of it from the cruiser, right? That no police officer would have lost his job at this point because he just simply would have said, the black man dove into his car and I saw something in his hand and I thought it was a weapon, so I began shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a feeling that's...
they play the games. It's just a game.
I have a feeling that... I think cameras... Listen, the other thing is they're not making anybody wear body... some of these cops are getting body cameras now. If they would make the police wear body cameras and not have the ability to turn the body camera off, by the way. In fact, I think if I were on a jury, and I would say to anybody out there, if you're ever on a jury someday and the police did have access to a camera but chose not to use it, or did have a camera on them and turned it off, you should just disbelieve everything they say out of principle. You should simply say, I'm not going to let the government allow police officers to turn cameras on and off or to decline to use a car with a camera when he could have taken the car with the camera so that he can do things without me knowing what really happened. And on the other hand, there's a very interesting statistic, which is when they put these body cameras on the police officers, the number of citizen complaints falls greatly as well. So the actual use of violence falls and citizens' complaint fall. And that's because a guy who knows he's being watched behaves differently than a guy who thinks it's just him and Johnny No Good out there on the side of the street somewhere.
Right.
Or
I think just overall in general, the way they're training these police officers today is not like they were training them years ago.
Right.
They're getting trainings that we don't need police officers to get, I don't think. And that might not be said very well. But they're being trained militaristically. And that's not what a police officer's job is. And I learned a long time ago when I was a kid, when that police officer walks up to you and tells you that his job, which they don't do that anymore today, but his job is to protect your rights. Well, when I was a kid, I soon learned that his rights isn't what I was protecting. And through my years, I've seen that, and there's fewer and fewer of those rights are being protected every day.
Right.
They, my rights don't give a shit to those guys. Sorry about that.
Well, we won't, it's internet radio, so you don't get as much trouble.
Yeah, I might podcast to the kids later, I should have done that. But anyway, it's just, general observations and stuff that you make through your life.
So,
my wife says it's no different now than it was then. The only difference is we have the internet to bring it to us. And maybe she's right.
She probably is, but she's your wife. So you don't want to admit that. She'll use that against you someday. Did you see this poll? 72% believe U.S. will use American combat troops against the ISIS. I guess basically everybody's ready.
But yet it all makes sense. I mean, not to you and me, but to the scheme of things.
Right.
If what I'm seeing going on around, especially in this country, which is where my real, it's where my real beliefs are. It's like, I think eventually they're going to come after us, you and me. And I think that the best way to do that is to hire foreign people that don't give a crap about you and me. And so in a way, it kind of fits into their agenda.
Right.
so to speak.
Well, listen, as long as you got a bad guy out there, you can always use that to your advantage for getting the populace to do what you want.
Right.
I think that's always a realistic problem.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I read that this past week, and it's like, okay, it's the status quo. Yeah, I mean, it's all just materializing right in front of us. It's been materializing all our lives. And if you're looking at what's going on, it's just coming to that time. I don't know when that time is.
Well,
but
people have been thinking that for a million years. People have been thinking that for a million years. I never know.
My dad probably said the same things when he was my age, and
By the way, Obama's also admitted that we misjudged the ISIS or misjudged the threat. Let's see.
But notice Obama calls it ISIL.
Yeah, they keep changing it. Everybody calls it something different. Listen,
but now we're in Iraq, so shouldn't that be ISII? I'm confused.
Here's what he says here. Over the past couple of years during the chaos of the Syrian civil war, where essentially you have huge swaths of the country that are completely ungoverned, they were able to reconstitute themselves and take advantage of that chaos. Adding later, the U.S. also overrated Iraq's security forces, which were quickly overrun by ISIS. Iraq security forces are terrible and incapable. Now, Boehner is calling them barbarians and saying that the U.S. may have no choice but to send American troops to fight the ISIS if the U.S. strategy fails to extinguish the extremist group. Well, we already know, we've already been told by other experts that the bombing will in no way, shape, or form extinguish the ISIS. So Boehner's basically saying we're sending troops. So guess what, kids? We're sending troops.
Right. And wasn't it kind of, I don't know if you call it ironic or not, but this past week we heard in the news that there was a beheading in Oklahoma.
Yeah. And
at a food production plant. I mean, so what is beheading like the next thing, the new craze, I mean, now you can't go out and just kill the guy. You got to cut his head off. I mean, I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the Muslim, that was Islamic Sharia way of.
Right.
Let's see. Was Muslim convert Elton Nolan, who allegedly beheaded co-worker Colleen Hufford and stabbed another woman, inspired by the ISIS?
Right.
Law enforcement and the media have, as usual, distanced the attack from Islam and terrorism. Okay, we got another caller who wants to get in here. Hold on a second. I got to do three things at once around here. Oh, boy. Okay. So, law enforcement media, as usual, distanced the attack from Islam and terrorism, implying the alleged crime as an example of workplace violence due to Nolan's recent firing from Vaughn Foods. But coworkers reported Nolan had a history of attempting to convert them to Muslim faith. Law officials revealed he was a contributing factor in Nolan's termination. And he was shouting Islamic phrases while attacking his victims. The guy could just be completely a nutbag crazy, but was he inspired at least? Yeah, seems like it.
Or did it even happen at all?
Well, I think it did.
It probably did.
You're going all Alex Jones on me now.
Well, it seems to me through my life I just learned to kind of question everything. Especially when you're on a national level, especially when you're on that level. I just, do you believe it? Well, I believe it when the government denies it,
Right. By the way, Dwayne, we got a second caller on here. So caller.
Go ahead, man. Put me on the listen line.
Yeah, caller, on the air.
Carl.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Linda.
Hey, Linda. What's going on?
How you doing?
Good. What do you think think's going on with this PA porno stuff, the ISS and the Ebola? Give us some thoughts.
Well, I think that we've lost total control of our country. I think the Ebola thing, I mean, I don't trust the government with vaccinations. Anything they tell me, oh, you need to get a flu shot. Like they make everybody at the hospital get a flu shot.
Uh-huh.
But you can be a visitor and go in the hospital for 12 hours a day and not get a flu shot. They have control over those employees, so they mandate that they get flu shots. That's coming from the government. It's coming from the CDC. I just don't trust anything